was 4 years ago that President Bush labeled North Korea a member of the Axis of Evil. But under the president's watch, you have North Korea has increased its nuclear arsenal. You've got it abandoning the six-party talks, and now these missile tests that are going on. What would you say to Americans? How do you convince them that this is not a policy that is basically a failure?
Well, let me. It's an interesting question.
Shows that any of the U.S. objectives have been met.
Let me put it this way. Let me quibble with your assumption beforehand. North Korea also had talked to the previous administration, which had put together an agreed framework that was designed to ensure that there would be no nuclear development. It was this administration that discovered that nuclear development and brought it directly to the attention of the North Koreans. It was this administration that also, working with our allies, brought the North Koreans to the table for the six-party talks. Is it going to be possible for a policy or a president to try to make a leader who seems determined not to care about his own people and also to defy the will of his neighbors? And if you have a man, look, what do you want me to say? Do you think that there is some special way to sort of send a secret message and Kim Jong-il suddenly is going to practice rationality? If so, we'd love to hear it, and we'll accept all suggestions. Mike, this is a North Korean government that's been behaving in much the same way for a very long period of time. And what the United States has done is created within the neighborhood a kind of diplomatic consensus that did not previously exist, and also now has a unity of purpose among the members of that community to try to make sure that North Korea's ambitions, whatever they may be, if they are hostile, get bottled up so that it is possible for that region to enjoy security and peace.
Just a follow-up here.
Yeah.
While the behavior of those involved in the six-party talks has changed, they've gotten more aggressive towards North Korea. How has the six-party talks, that process, changed Pyongyang's behavior?
Let me back up. I would hesitate. You've just described the behavior of people who've been offering diplomacy as aggressive. Wrong. The people who are practicing aggression are the people who are firing missiles into the sea. I don't know, but if that was their desire, they failed. If it was the desire of Kim Jong-il to turn this into a two-party negotiation or standoff between the United States and North Korea, he blew it.
Except the premise that was set forth here that the missile launching is based because they want one-on-one talks. And if they did, what would be the objection? Surely the other 5 members would not object to the U.S. keeping.
Well, as a matter of fact, if you think about it, the other 5 would object because the other 4, frankly, because you have 4 plus North Korea. Let me. Of course, they trust us, but on the other hand, it is their neighborhood, and they are the ones. They're launching the missiles. All landed in the Sea of Japan. The Japanese have an interest in it. The South Koreans have an interest in it. The Chinese have an interest in it. The Russians have an interest in it. So the key here, but no, what you're saying is set them aside as negotiating partners. Sure you are.
Be a basic spokesman for the other
but the other parties have long agreed to working as a unit, because when somebody tries to divide off, and we've seen a little bit of this with Iran, when you try to, please let me finish, and then you can do the follow-up. Okay, yes. To continue, when somebody tries to drive a wedge in a coalition, the idea is not to strengthen it, but to weaken it. And the United States is not going to permit its ability to negotiate as part of a team to be weakened, nor are we going to allow the Chinese voice to be weakened, or the Japanese voice to be weakened, or the South Korean or the Russian voices to be weakened. As a result, there really is strength in numbers as people with differing relations, some official and we obviously not official, with the government of North Korea, can work together to figure out the smartest and best way to achieve what we hope will still be a peaceful and happy result.
I think they would trust us to negotiate.
They may trust us, but
input.
they have already agreed upon the formulation, and we agree with it.
2 questions, Tony. National Security Studies Professor Bob Zelnick of Boston University has just detailed the 1942 Chicago Tribune's reporting of the top-secret U.S. breaking of the Imperial Japanese Code, which came only months after President Roosevelt, during a news conference, awarded the Iron Cross to another reporter after the Tribune published another top-secret contingency plan for getting U.S. troops to Europe. And my question, has President Bush considered any Al-Qaeda or other terrorist group award for the New York Times, or does he believe the Attorney General is preparing legal action against that newspaper?
We will leave awards to the journalistic community, which will come up with what awards and plaudits they deem appropriate.
You think President Roosevelt was wrong?
As for prosecutions, that is something that independent prosecutors must decide. The White House is not going to hand down edicts saying investigate this. You'll leave it in the hands of independent investigators and prosecutors to come to their own determinations.
President Roosevelt was wrong to pin the Iron Cross on that reporter.
I'm just not interested in even talking about it.
National Review magazine recommends that the White House pull the credentials of the New York Times, while nationally syndicated columnist Helen Thomas recommends that you, quote, refuse to speak with Times reporters on grounds that they can't be trusted, end of quote. Since Helen Thomas quotes you, Tony, admiringly, could you tell us why the New York Times was invited to the dinner for Japan's Prime Minister when almost all of the rest of the White House reporters were not invited?
Well, as you know, those are hot tickets, and David Sanger has long history with the Japanese. He even speaks fairly passable Japanese, according to him. I don't know. What do you think? You think Sanger's Japanese is okay? Okay. And frankly, with Cheryl and Jim and the White House correspondents, we think they do their jobs. They do it fairly. They work hard and they try to get it right. So I'm not going to kick him out. And I still love Cal.